Constantly worrying about losing your job is not only discouraging, but it can also significantly impact your well-being. I personally would know this as I experienced firsthand a retrenchment in early May this year. In fact, studies have shown that job insecurity can negatively impact your concentration and motivation and lead to mental health issues such as anxiety and depression. I've come to learn that proactively confronting your layoff anxiety is the best way to keep fears from getting the better of you. And here's how. 1. Separate fact from fiction. The stories you tell yourself may not always reflect reality, so monitor your inner dialogue. When I started paying attention to my thoughts more closely, I noticed that I often jumped to conclusions. For example, if my boss answered an email slower than usual, I would feel paranoid that I was falling out of favor. I realized I was falling victim to confirmation bias, erroneously interpreting my boss's behavior as evidence that I was going to be terminated. Examine what evidence you have that points to the likelihood of a layoff and whether or not you'd be impacted. Consider, has your manager asked you to implement cost-saving measures? Has the company instituted a hiring freeze? Are sales consistently down? Is your workload lighter than usual? Are you being pushed out of meetings you previously participated in? If the answer to most of these questions is no, then you probably have less cause for concern. If you still find that your thoughts are racing, try mindful breathing, imagining letting go of the unhelpful thoughts with each exhale. 2. Take constructive action. If you do sense signs of a layoff, get more information and assess your situation. Are your projects high value? Is your work revenue generating? Are you assigned to initiatives that senior leadership considers important? If not, speak to your boss about modifying your workload to ensure your time is well spent. It's also wise to cultivate relationships with internal stakeholders and keep your ear to the ground about news of possible company restructuring. At the same time, don't wait to begin re-engaging your network. Reconnect with old colleagues and managers. Join an industry group or trade association. Set aside a few hours to make sure your resume, cover letter, and LinkedIn profile are up to date. Even if layoffs don't come, you'll feel comforted knowing that you could make a move at any time. 3. Deploy defensive pessimism. Make worry work to your advantage by taking your fear out to its extreme. Ask yourself what you'd do if you were laid off. What are the next steps you would take? Walk through your plan in detail. Anticipate how you deal with obstacles such as your finances, healthcare, childcare, and finding a new job. This may sound like a bleak exercise, but it can be very powerful. Research shows that mentally rehearsing your response to worst-case scenarios helps harness anxiety instead of allowing it to harm you. A strategy known as defensive pessimism. By creating contingency plans, it creates a perception of control amid an otherwise uncertain situation. 4. Rally your resilience. Research shows that people who reflected on how they had grown through life's challenges showed higher levels of psychological well-being and resilience. So think about a time when you faced disappointment, hurt, or hardship. How many times have you successfully survived challenging times? What strengths allowed you to pull through? What new doors opened after that? 5. Invest in self-complexity. It's important that your work be part of who you are, but it's risky to make it the entirety of your identity. Research shows that people who reduced themselves down to one attribute, for example their job, felt dehumanized, like nothing more than a machine or a tool, and had higher levels of disengagement, depression, and burnout. Now compare this with a concept from psychology known as self-complexity, which simply put reflects the number and diversity of attributes that make up the meaningful aspects of who you are. The higher your self-complexity, the more resilient you are. That's why it's important to think about diversifying your sense of self, just as you diversify your finances. You can diversify your identity and create self-complexity by investing in different areas of your life. That way, when things at work aren't going well, you don't lose your entire sense of self. You might choose to devote time to hobbies, your spirituality, or your health. Do try out the tips shared in this video to ease your concerns and set yourself up to respond to whatever the future throws at you. Always trust in yourself. Good luck.